tenure. Today, I'm joined by Susan Pohlman, founder and director of the Phoenix Writers Network. Susan is a freelance writer, editor, writing coach, and workshop facilitator who has helped countless writers move from idea to finished work. She is the author of 2 memoirs, Halfway to Each Other, How a Year in Italy Brought Our Family Home, and A Time to Seek, Meaning, Purpose, and Spirituality at Midlife. She has also taught creative writing through libraries, universities, and major writing conferences. Susan brings a grounded, honest perspective on what it really takes to finish your own book. So welcome to the podcast, Susan.
Thank you, Margaret. I am so happy to be here.
Great. Let's dive into the questions.
All right, great.
Can you tell me a little bit about how you got started as a writer and your journey into writing books and a memoir?
So that's quite a journey, I'll have to say, and I want to just share with you. It was a natural progression. I did not study writing in college. I was not an MFA candidate or any of that sort, and so I love to share this story because I want people to know that anybody from any walk of life can choose to write and do well with it. So basically, I started as a middle grade teacher. I taught all language, arts, writing, literature. So I developed a real appreciation for writing at a young age, but I wasn't a writer myself. Fast forward many years, we ended up moving to Los Angeles. And so when I was living there, you're surrounded by people in the industry, the movie industry. And I really became fascinated with screenwriting. It is a
Mm-hmm.
magnificent genre. And the art of screenwriting is intricate, and a good screenplay is really brilliant. So I really started to study it like as a real student. And I worked at it and I took classes and I joined writing groups. I did all the fun stuff, went to Universal Studios, all of that. I really was trying hard, even though it was still a side gig. I wanted to break in, and I worked a couple of years, quite a few years, trying to become a screenwriter, and to the point where I couldn't do it. I couldn't sell a screenplay. I couldn't get an agent. It was hard. And so I gave up. And I said, I'm not going to do that anymore. And it was kind of sad, but I'm like, whatever, it didn't work for me. And at the same time, so as we were living in LA, my husband was in the radio business. He was running quite a few stations in the area.
Mm-hmm.
And we had gotten to a point in our marriage where it was falling off a cliff, basically. And so he came to me and not out of the blue, but he asked me to work one of their work trips with them. We would always take clients once a year on some fabulous vacation. He worked for CBS. So
Mm-hmm.
anyway, this one was going to be in Italy. I'm like, fine, I'll help you with this, but I had already started divorce proceedings, right? And I said, this is just going to be business, and we're going to go and blah blah blah. Anyway, get over there, and unexpectedly, he shared with me. He just said, again, long story short, I will quit my job, and he's at the top of his career. If you move here with me, and why don't we start over and work on our marriage? Which, I'm like, yeah, that's a terrible idea. So terrible idea. Like, why would I do that? And we have 2 kids, teenagers, whatever, terrible. Anyway, magic happened and we ended up moving over there. We did it. We signed a lease. We found a school for the kids. It was a last ditch Hail Mary effort. Um, and it was scary, so we went home. Tim quit his job. We sold our house. We sold everything. We were back there in 2 months. The reason I'm telling you this is that experience, it helped in a lot of ways. Number one, it helped me learn how to be vulnerable. It helped me learn how to say, if this is a disaster, I'll figure it out. Okay. Now, these are skills that are to come later when we talk about writing a book, right? And so also, but what happened magically was I had a bunch of girlfriends who, before I left, challenged me and said, you're making a mistake. Like, don't do this. And when I said I was going to do it, they're like, then please write to us and don't lie about it. Tell us what it's like. Now Okay, having understood writing at this point and studied the art of screenwriting, so I knew how to write a scene. A scene is
Hmm.
a specific writing tool, okay? And so when story moments would happen, I would sit down and instead of writing them a letter, I would write the scene and I would send it to them. And some of them were funny, some of them were sad, some of them were whatever, what it's like to do what I was doing. And unbeknownst to me, they started sending these to mothers and girlfriends. And it was, I had no idea this was starting to like branch out, right? And
Uh-huh.
then at one point, a journalist friend of mine wrote to me and said, "Stop sending these out because I think you have a book." Now, I had never considered writing a book before. It
Uh-huh.
never entered my mind. And so I was like, well, I don't know what that is like, but I'll keep writing these. So when we got home a year later, I had a big stack of these scenes, and I knew enough, having tried to get an agent through screenwriting. It's like an impossible journey. And so I was like, I had a choice. I can either try to fashion this into a book or not. It's going to be hard. It's going to take a long time. I'm going to have to learn how to do it. And then I just thought to myself, why wouldn't I try? Who cares if it's a disaster, right? So I did. So I sat down and I tried. And that journey to that book was all about trial and error. It was about, okay, what do I need to do next? How do I learn how to do that? As someone who didn't come from an MFA background, I didn't know the steps, but I was able to figure it out. And I met people along the way that were happy to help me. You know, to sell a memoir, you have to have a book proposal. What's a book proposal, right? I don't know. So and so sat me down and showed me how to do it. How do I find an agent? I don't know. You network, and I found an agent who took a chance on me. So, and it sold. It sold to Guidepost Books, and so it's a long journey to that point, but I guess my real message is that I wasn't just some fancy writer that knew what I was doing. I was a person who understood that writing is a skill set, that you have to learn the tools, and then you have to have the tenacity and lack of fear in trying to figure it out. That's a long answer to your question, Margaret. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's
So that's
fine.
that's
That's
where, and
fine.
then I just took it from there, and once I was like, "All right, I can do this." And so I sat down and wrote a second book, and then I went back and I started doing short films with my brother who's a producer. And so I it just gave me the confidence, once I had learned the skills and understood the business, to go forward.
Got it.
So,
Got it.
mhm.
So in your experience as far as when people say someday I want to write a book, what would you say is the difference between people who actually start and then those who stay stuck in the idea?
So I think the people that succeed are more strategic. Okay. There's a difference between having a story and having a premise. And so people will say, "Oh, I have a great idea for a book." That's a premise. Okay. But the story is, well, how are you going to flesh out that idea? What's the journey of the character? Right. And so people that are strategic, they look at this project, whether it's your first book or your 10th, with the eyes of from the publishing world. Okay. What's my story? What's the best
Mhm.
genre to tell it? Okay. Who's my audience going to be? Is it sellable? Is this idea already been done? You've got to like really look at the big picture first and then structure yourself for success. So people that burn out in the middle are get excited maybe and sit down and just start writing and
Mhm.
then get lost in their story because they haven't really thought it through as a product. A book is a product, and you have to say, okay, how am I going to
Mm.
market my product? What, you know, who's going to buy this book? And so those are the people that structure themselves, set themselves up for success because they understand all those different factions that go into it.
So it's not just enough to just write. Like, you have to have the process and the structure behind it to kind of answer the questions that you just asked.
I mean, there are different levels of writing. Some people just love to write because they love getting lost in the words, or they love beautiful language, or they love to journal. That's great. I mean,
Mhm.
people find their way, and there's different types of writing out there. Not all writing has to end up in a book or being published. But if you're looking to publish, then you have to think in a publisher's mindset. All right. How is this going to make
Okay.
money? Publishing is about money as much as it is about art. And so the agent is looking at your product to say, will this make me money? All right. And they're looking at
Got it.
you as a business partner who is also a creative. Okay. So you got to
Okay.
understand those layers if you want to publish traditionally. If you want to just self publish, then you have a lot more leeway on how you approach a project.
Is that would you say that, like, maybe is the biggest misconception about, like, writing and publishing a book?
Think anyone today can publish a book. Whether it
Mhm.
sells or not is another story. So,
Huh.
marketing is a huge part of publishing, and in this day and age, the publishers want us to do our own marketing for the most part, unless you're
Mhm.
like Stephen King or something, right? So, so you really it's a small business is really what it is. Um, but some people, like, for example, legacy writing, which has become very popular,
Mhm.
and just want to write their memoir for their family, that is a much more, what should I say? It's an easier route because you're not publishing for the masses. You really just want to create a book um, that shares your life story, that you
Mhm.
can leave with your family when you're gone, and connect to your grandchildren and great grandchildren. That's a whole different situation. All right. Um,
Uh-huh.
yeah. So it just depends on, again, understanding what's your motivation? Why am I writing this, and who am I writing to? And what's my end goal? Do I want to be traditionally published? Well, if you do, and that's great, you can do it, but there's a lot of parameters that you have to understand to make that happen.
Okay, so starting from there, how would you, help somebody, like, organize towards setting on a story?
Okay, so first of all, you'd say, okay, is this fiction or nonfiction? All right, and so if it's nonfiction and they want to write a memoir or an autobiography, those are two different things. All right, and you have to first of all understand, like, an autobiography is the story of an entire life, start to finish. Well, I
Mhm.
mean, obviously you're not finished yet, but till where you are. A memoir is actually a story from your life. Okay. It's not of your life, it's from your life. So a memoir has a start and finish, it's one journey. So if this is your life, you have this little tiny piece. I'm going to write about this journey, this thing that happened to me here. And that's why you have people like Mary Carr who have like 3 memoirs out, because she's taking different sections of her life and creating that journey for the reader, of
Huh.
what happened. Okay. So you have to understand the difference between those two. If it's fiction, then you'll want to, talk through, okay, what's your story? Who's your character? What's their journey through? And then you've got to understand, like, okay, what genre does that belong is this sci-fi? Is this mystery? Is this a cozy mystery? There's all of these different types of genres. And so you would want to research what are the expectations of that genre. And then
Okay.
you would help them plot out their story to get them started.
Okay.
Mhm.
Interesting that there's so much prep work around
Mhm.
answering those questions about who you're writing for and then fitting it into the established publishing and book world.
That's how it will be sold, and that's how you will pitch it to
Right.
agents.
And what's a realistic way someone can do it when they have life and work and
Mhm.
family? Is there some structure that helped you? You did it with writing it to your friends over sharing it with them,
Right.
which was
Which
Oh, brilliant,
Well,
actually.
I mean, I didn't even know I was doing that. I think
Uh-huh.
that was so freeing because I didn't have the pressure of like, oh no, I'm writing a book. I was
Right,
just having fun, right?
right. Yeah.
When I got home, I ended up getting a job as an assistant principal. And so I needed to find time. It's a very busy job, and I had two teenagers. We were getting reestablished. We were in a busy part of our life. And I'm like, how am I going to write a book? And so what I did though is I would get up in the morning an hour before everyone else and get my cup of coffee, and I would sit down and I would devote that time to write. And that was my time. People thought I was ridiculous, but I was focused. I'm like, I'm doing this, I'm doing it, right? Um, maybe not every day, but I think what you have to do is look at your life and be realistic about what your free time is. And there's no magic, oh, you have to write every day. I don't believe in that because that's just not real life. But let's say you can write every Saturday afternoon for 3 hours, or once a month for Saturday and Sunday. Your family's like let you alone for 48 hours, and you just go into your room and write. It's whatever works for you. So the key though is to be consistent and to always feel that forward movement, right?
Mhm.
Because it's hard. You've got to be tenacious, and you need to stay in the groove.
Okay.
So there's no magical answer to this. It's what works for you and how can you stay in the writing.
Okay. That's
Yeah.
good, and that consistency is really it because there's a lot
Hmm.
of times people start things and, they get to that point and then it drops off and then they're like, "Well, it's something that I'll do later in life."
Well, especially if you're writing a novel, you have to stay in the story and keep your characters alive in your
Mhm.
head. So let's say you get to, a quarter of the way through the book and you're really excited about it. And then all of a sudden you're like, well, you know what? It's the holidays and I'm going to just wait 3 months. And you sit back down. It's kind of like starting over. Right. And you're like, what was I doing? And it's just hard. So you want to stay in the story and keep those characters alive in your head.
So
It might
that
be
kind of the consistency is what helps get you through the slump, let's say.
right. There's usually a slump in the middle, okay? And like in coaching writers, that oftentimes that's when someone will write to me and say, "I think I need a little help,"
Okay.
because people get lost in their own story. There are times when you just want to throw it against the wall, you're sick of yourself, all of that stuff. But what it really boils down to is lack of prep work. All right. Okay, let me just step back. There's People say there's two types of writers, a plotter or a pantser. Okay. A plotter sits down and plots out their story. A
Uh-huh.
pantser just sits down every day and says, let's see what the characters will do today. Right.
Right.
Um, I think, that works for some people and they find their way through the story, and that's great. For me, I'm more attuned to the plotting, because I think if you plot out your story properly, and I think this comes from the screenplay sort of mindset,
Mhm.
that when you sit down, I know what scene comes next, and you're not lost in your story. And you know why doing this scene, because this is what's going to happen later, and this is what I need to develop for this character. When you do get lost in that muddy middle, it's really important to either step back, um, you know, go to your writer friends, which I'm urging everyone who wants to be a writer to develop a writing circle. So you
Oh.
either go to your friends and say, can you read this for me and help me? Talk
Uh-huh.
this through with me. Let's process my story. What am I doing? Or you hire a professional that helps you do that as well. So you can go either way and try to get yourself back on track and understand what's going wrong. Maybe you've chosen the wrong point of view to write the story. Maybe
Mhm.
there's a better structure that would help the story. There are different things that can get you back on track. Hmm.
So that brings me to the next question. When is there a point where you seek feedback or help? Or
Hmm.
is it like just along the way?
So, it just kind of depends, but I urge people when someone like contacts me looking for a developmental editor, okay? So there's different levels of editing, but they want developmental work. I always urge them to finish your first draft because a first draft is honestly, anyone who's listening, everyone's first draft is not good. It just isn't. That's just the nature of the beast. So don't be so hard on yourself thinking this crap is crappy. Like just like Anne Lamott says, all first drafts are crap. So, but once you have that first draft laid out, then your editor can actually see your story. They can see your character development. They can see what your themes are,
Yeah.
and and then they can say, "All right, I get it. This is a great story. Let's see how we can make it stronger. Maybe start it here. Maybe take these characters out because they're not really doing anything but distracting us." So I think that if you go too soon, you're sort of wasting your money because the editor can't see it. So I'll have people come and say, "Can you just read my first 25 pages?" I'm like, "I can, and I'm happy to do it, but it does that really help you? Because I don't know what your story is." Right?
Mm.
So I think there's a lot of people that will be happy to take your money, but
Hmm.
I urge people to get through your initial story, even if you feel like this is so embarrassing, but I need help now. That's when you show that to somebody who understands writing that can help you in your next draft because literally the adage writing is rewriting is real. All right. We never sell our first drafts. It's like the
Right.
25th draft that actually is ready for the agent. And then they take you through another few rewrites. And so that's just what it looks like. It's the journey of the book. And it actually is the fun part because you watch your story getting better and better and better. Um, so not to be afraid of that process.
Got it. Would you say
Mhm.
that is that what surprised you the most about the writing process and the publishing process? Or was there something else that surprised you about the process in general that you could share?
I mean, all of it was new to me, and so, honestly, I loved the whole thing, but it did surprise me how many times I had to rewrite my book. It was exhausting, just exhausting, and then once they finally accept your final draft, then they take you through, like, the line editing, and then they take you through the copy editing, and then all of that. It's long and arduous, but in a happy way. Because if you sell a book, it's really great and it's really fun to be in the process with the publisher, and you learn so much about the business, about the people behind the scenes, just all of it. It's fascinating, really. So, but it's long and arduous. You sell a book, if you sell to a publisher, your book's not going to come out for 2 years. And that's the hard part. Yeah. But during those 2 years, you're hard at work on it. It's not like,
Right.
or you're working
Yeah.
on that with the publisher, but then you're starting your next book.
So be
Mhm.
prepared for delayed gratification.
I mean, unless you're someone who cranks out a book every year and, it just you see these writers who crank out books, right? And so they're
Mhm.
with their publisher cranking out books. So, that's kind of rare to be honest with you, but it does happen. Mhm.
Okay. So maybe in summing it up, if you want to speak a little bit to the mindset, some of the work that I do is about the mindset. People get stuck in fear and then they
Mhm.
don't move forward on their goals of writing a book or losing weight or different things that they want to produce in their life. So speak a little bit about the preparation of like the process or the mindset of writing that book.
So, first of all, let's talk about fear. Okay. Fear is a huge factor in any creative work because we're creating something that's never been out there before, right? This is a new thing. And so I think we have to accept the fact that fear is part of the process. All right.
Mhm.
And so especially as you begin to like this writing journey, your family and friends have never seen you in that role before. And so, yeah, they're going to say things and make little jokes or whatever, right? That's natural and normal, and you can expect it. Like, "What are you, a writer now?" All that kind of stuff. But I think, um, to understand how fear works, so they talk about the inner critic, right? You'll see that in everywhere. And basically, the way that I like to look at it is that every time you sit down to write, you're going to have an angel on one shoulder and you're going to have the devil on the other shoulder. Okay. And you're like, "Hi, angel and devil. Here we are today." And so in your first draft or so, you take the devil and you sit him in the corner and you ignore him. Okay. The critic. And the angel's like, "You are so great. This is the most fun story." And you write and write and write and you're having a great time. Okay. Now your first draft is done. You take the angel off your shoulder and you invite the critic back on because now it's their turn because you need them. And
Hmm.
so the critic is the one who helps you critique and accept critique of your work because again, your first draft's not going to be that good. And so you have to understand that you need both of these people, these to help you create something great. And then it doesn't feel so scary. Now, there's a book which I knew we were going to talk about this. So I got it out of my it's called Art and Fear. Every
Okay.
person who is creating something needs to get this book, David Bayles and Orland. And it talks about the nature of fear in creating any kind of art. And it's a beautiful, wonderful book that will help you accept fear as a friend. It's just part of the process. Okay.
Okay.
Um, Now, what was the second part of the question? Okay, the mindset. All right. So your mindset basically is number one, to learn your skills. Literally, I think anyone can write a book. And the difference, it's not like someone comes down and takes like a wand and like taps you on the head and you're going to be a writer and you're going to be a writer, right? That's not how it works. So it's a skill set like anything else. I mean, I think about like when I wanted to learn how to play tennis, I didn't right away say, well, I'm a tennis player. No, I was terrible at it, but I stuck with it. I
Uh-huh.
learned the different skills. This is how you serve. This is how you mold, all that stuff. Writing is the same way. It's a skill set. And all of the literary terms that you hear, characterization, setting, scene, narrative summary, theme, all of those are separate tools. And so you have to learn each tool on its own. This is why it's important to enroll in classes or go to the library or read online about each skill. And once you understand your tools, then the next part is practicing your tools. And the weaving together of those tools is what creates beautiful language. And so your mindset is to say, all right, I'm going to enjoy being an apprentice. I'm going to enjoy it. I'm going to learn. Might take me 2, 3 years. Who cares? Right? It's not like anyone's forcing me to do this. I'm going to enjoy the journey and learn this new skill set because it's really fun, to be honest with you, to learn something new and to meet other people on the same journey. And writers are, in my experience, are generous people who see life deeply, they feel life deeply, and they want to help each other in their craft. And it's just a great way, especially if you're working with someone who's retiring and wondering how am I going to develop new friends? Am I going to be lonely now that I've
Oh,
stepped out of corporate America and all my friends over there, and where
right.
am I going to meet people? Well, I'm telling you, there's a huge community of writers ready to embrace you and to help you learn. It's just a very rich sort of life, whether it's a side gig or just some new adventure you're trying. It's great. I can't say enough about it.
So I love that because you brought in feel the fear and do it anyway, but
Uh,
also that you have to prepare yourself to do the work
right,
and
right.
and also have that feedback maybe from other people. And then it also creates a community in which
hmm
you can grow into your skill sets. Because a lot
Right.
of times people go, "Oh, I want to be better at golf." And then I go, "Well, what have you done to practice more golf?" And they go, "Nothing." you know, I'm playing once a week and I'm like, well, wait a minute. Make some really like valid points as far as with understanding that it's the practice of,
Mhm.
bringing yourself to the party and
Right,
then doing the work and then
right.
getting that feedback as far as that. And then making it fun.
Making
You
it fun, right? I mean, why if you're not having fun, why are you doing it, right? And
right,
the other thing too, there's so many groups online too. You don't have to go anywhere if you don't want to. Even though it
right.
is fun to be in person and there are groups in town, in your town, wherever you are, I'm sure there are a library, whatever, that you can be in person. But even like right now, I teach on writers.com. And so, you'll have a big group. And oftentimes, some of those students will then stay connected as a critique group because they get to know each other in the class and they kind of clicked and they have the same skill sets. Once you learn a new skill set, and then they'll go off and start their own, let's meet once a week or let's be accountability partners, or and so you can meet people anywhere, either in person or on the internet, that you develop wonderful relationships with, learning to write. Mhm.
Excellent. Well,
Mhm.
thank you so much. This was, you were able to share your journey so openly and you
Mhm.
talked a little bit about like what it means as far as trusting that creative voice, but then also being able to like put a structure around it.
Right.
So, um, I
Absolutely.
really enjoyed it. Thank you so much. If you want to share with people how they could either work with you or, some of the resources that may be helping them through universities or libraries or anything like that, this is your platform as far as to share that information.
Yeah, so basically anyone's welcome to drop me an email. Okay, it's Susan at susanpohlman.com. Pretty easy. Or you can find my website and write me through there. Same thing, susanpohlman.com. Um, I teach through writers.com, and I have my full editing certification from the University of Chicago, and I do all levels of coaching and editing, and I'm happy to help anyone, or even just if you want to chat and ask questions, I'm happy to get on Zoom with you for free for 15 minutes and we can talk about your project and see if it's got legs. So I'm hoping everyone listening just reaches into their creative soul and just if you have this urge to write a book, try it, just try it and have fun with it.
Excellent. Well, Susan, thank you for the work that you do and the space that you create for other writers and the example you set by continuing to say yes to your own voice.
Yeah.
It's a
Thank you.
great story.
Just
And
love it.
and to everyone listening, take what landed and notice as far as what shows up in your life as far as how you want to move forward with whatever it is, writing or whatever skill set that you want to develop, and take some notes from this mindset wise and otherwise to kind of like take that time to prepare and then do the work and then evaluate it. And I think that's super important. So thank you again, Susan. And
So
until
happy
next
to be
time,
here, Margaret. Thank you for the chance to
yeah,
I appreciate
yeah,
it.
excellent. Thank you. And until next time, take good care.
All right.